Hello and welcome everybody to episode 3 of the Deep Fried Freedom Hallway Talk podcast. I'm Clay Councilman alongside Phillip Watson, Benjamin Szilagyi, and Will Paley. And today we've got a variety of topics. After our hiatus last week, we all enjoyed a nice Easter break. And to kick it off, last week marked the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. And Drake, the rapper who we declared last week or 2 weeks ago on our top 5 rappers list as number 1, put out a new song, and it features an audio clip from a concert that James Brown gave in the 60s the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and Ben has some interesting information on that for us.
Yeah, so on April 4th of 68, Dr. King was assassinated while he was standing on the balcony of his motel in Memphis, Tennessee. And he was there in support of some 1,300 sanitation workers who were marching for some rights in the workplace. And then the day after, on April 5th, James Brown was scheduled to have a concert in Boston, Massachusetts. And the mayor was, in shock and was hoping that, Brown would continue to have the concert because there was riots going on all across the country, and he didn't want his city to burn like the rest of them were. Brown was still going to carry on with the concert. And with a little bit of adaptive expertise, they actually ended up televising the concert. And during that time, some crazy stuff kind of happened where, people were jumping up on the stage, police got involved, and James Brown actually tells people to get back off the stage, and he also tells the police to back off and basically settles everything down. And he was kind of credited for stopping the riots from happening in Boston.
You're not being fair to yourself and me either. You're not being fair to yourself and me or your race. Now, I asked the police to step back because I figured I could get some respect from my own people. That makes sense. And all we together win. Hit the thing, man.
And a little bit of the sound bites from that concert, that televised broadcast, were actually on Drake's new song, Nice for What, that dropped some 3 days after the 50th anniversary of the assassination.
Representing it here tonight. Hold on.
Yeah, before I get into the new song, I just find it kind of crazy how little bit of news there was about Martin Luther King's death, because that was 50 years ago. That's a big date. I mean, that's half a century. And yeah, it just really surprises me that we didn't see much in the news, or at least I didn't. But talking about Drake's new song, I love it. I personally love it. And it really reminds me of like old school Drake, just like the type of beats he used to use. And this music video is also getting like a lot of credit for it being very empowering to women, because people said that like Drake wasn't even the main focus of his own video. It had a lot of actresses, famous actresses like Olivia Wilde, Rashida Jones, and Zoe Saldana, just to mention a few. There were like a lot more, but it's just a really good song. And it's cool seeing how Drake is starting to grow into this kind of like rapper of like the people after God's Plan music video coming out and him spending all $1 million on the people, and then this empowering video for women. So it's really cool to see Drake develop into this new type of rapper.
Like you said earlier, Will, but I think with the music, with the song, that cemented his place at top 5 and number 1 at our spot. And I can't wait for his brand new album to come out that will really just extend that legacy.
Oh, yeah, I'm real excited.
And I think that's really cool that he honored both Dr. King with that soundbite from James Brown, and he also honored James Brown because James Brown is very notably a very big influence on a lot of rappers, because, funk is a really big influence on rap and hip-hop. So I'm sure James Brown, if you ask Drake, who's somebody that you really idolize, I bet you anything he would mention James Brown in one of those people.
Oh, absolutely. And it's also, it's kind of a celebration of a big turning point in people's careers, and specifically James Brown's career and a lot of the music figures of the time, because after this time he became very politically active and politically charged, as well as message charged in his music. He went from really funky and, let's get weird, let's get partying, to songs such as Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, songs such as Don't Be a Dropout, King Heroin, and Public Enemy, where he tackles everything from race issues to drug abuse and things of that nature. This is a huge turning point in his career, and I think that was a really cool tribute from Drake to acknowledge that for them.
Just real quickly, what are some of y'all's favorite James Brown songs? Since we're talking about him, Ben, I know you've probably got a couple.
I'm always a fan of Getting Up Off That Thing, but that's just me.
Wasn't there a remix of that in Robots? Remember that animated movie?
There
was.
There's like a street performer. There was a street performer.
At the end, it was like kind of the big closing musical number, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I'm a very big James Brown fan. I don't know if y'all even really knew that about me. But he's a really big influence on my music. And when I listen to funk, he's always where I start. And I listen to a lot of funk now, and that's kind of where I started with all that.
The godfather of funk.
The godfather.
Yeah, I really
That's right.
like James Brown. My favorite song is probably Cold Sweat.
That is a good one. That's a real good one. So next, Ben, you've got another tidbit for us here about a lady that almost threw away a $2 million lottery ticket.
Yeah, so this was a real fun one to read about, and it was really interesting. So a woman in Michigan was given a lotto scratcher for her birthday, and she scratched it off, and after assuming she didn't win anything, she tossed it in the trash, and then later realized her mistake, pulled it out of the trash, double-checked, and found out that she had won $2 million and had almost thrown it in the trash can.
Oh, my gosh. I don't know what I would do. I don't think I could live with myself if I threw away a $2 million lottery ticket.
Yeah, so what would you guys do if you threw away that money, and what would you guys do if you had that money? Two big questions.
I'd probably cry myself to sleep every night for about a month if I found out I threw that ticket away.
I would, too.
Only a month? I think I'd be crying myself to sleep for the rest of my life.
Probably.
Do you know how long $2 million can last you?
That's right.
That's just very depressing if
That's
she
right.
actually threw that away. Gosh.
So I want to answer Ben's question with what I would do with $2 million. I would put $1 million of that dollars away, and then I would blow the other $1
That's about what I do. I'd say I'd probably save a large chunk of it. Maybe a little. I might actually save like $1.5 million, and kind of now go crazy on about 500,000 of it. I'd spend a lot on. I'd go see some really good concerts and sit like on the front row.
Oh yeah.
I'd do some traveling, and being a musician, I'd buy a bunch of nice musical equipment. That's one of the first things I would do.
Absolutely.
Maybe a new car. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd definitely probably spend it on a new guitar because I play guitar as well. Definitely spend it on music equipment, concerts. But it's kind of easy for me to say I'd save a lot of it. But if I had $2 million in my bank account, I mean, I probably would not be very good about saving it.
Yeah, understandably. I see myself buying shares of the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and then I see myself taking $250,000 of that $2 million and spending that all on more scratchers.
I probably would.
That's the way you lose it all.
I agree. I'd probably now that you say that, I probably would invest some of it. That's probably a pretty smart move because you've got a little extra, you've got money to spend. So you maybe not a ton of it, but you invest $50,000 or something.
We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. I'm lifting up the Ford Focus like 40 inches. I'm going crazy.
I'd love to see that.
Lifted Ford Focus, get some like underglow and all that, like the neon light.
So the big thing that I get out of this story is, you ever hear this saying? You know what they say about the lottery, right?
What did they say about the lottery?
You won't win.
Yep.
Hey man, we were talking about that earlier today. Actually, it's like the odds may be great, but somebody's got to win. Every time somebody has to win.
I don't know if I'd jump into it with that logic. That's very risky.
Next up, moving on from the lottery, another kind of bizarre thing that happened was there was a hunter that shot a goose and out of the air, and it landed on his head when it fell. And he survived, but he is now hospitalized. And this is yet another interesting story that Ben presented to us earlier today. That we thought we might have a little fun with, because this is really kind of wacky and like a 1 in a million type thing.
Yeah, so just a quick couple of details. This was this past week in Easton, Maryland, and he was with a group of experienced hunters who go out all the time. And when one of the members of the group shot this goose, it fell and hit him in the head, knocked him out. He was hospitalized. He actually lost a couple teeth in the process of him getting hit too. Like, guys, what are your thoughts here?
Gosh, I hate to say it's funny because
it's funny.
But it's so serious. I mean, I was looking up the stats about it, and this goose was falling at about 50 miles per hour, and it fell 90 feet to the ground. And we don't even know if the guy who got hit was the one that shot it. That's in the article. They don't know. But
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're not sure if he was the one who did it, but it's just very ironic.
What are the odds?
Exactly.
What are the odds that something like that? That's about the equal odds of winning the lottery. I think is that you shoot a goose or somebody else shoots a goose in midair and it happens to land on you while you're out hunting yourself. That's just wild.
Yeah, woman in Michigan won the lottery. Man in Maryland lost the lottery there. Like
he lost the personal lottery, the hunting lottery. I think if I ever in my life go goose hunting, I'll wear a hard hat or something, just to be a little careful.
Your buddies will all be giving you crap if you're wearing a helmet out there while you're hunting. You're like, hey man,
just come in with a full
you hear
armor.
about
You
hear about that
false
guy?
it.
Yeah, let me tell you a story real quick while we're out here hunting. That's all kinds of wacky, we hope in all honesty we hope the guy's all right. And because that's just a very random thing to happen. Okay, so next in the news here, this is actually a local piece of news for us here at Appalachian State. Last weekend, if you're an Appalachian State student or you're around the area, you are probably aware that the very famous current rap group Migos just performed a concert here last week, and it was a lot of students considered it to be an underwhelming concert.
Yeah.
It was a decent night out. But the musical performance itself a lot of us found really lacking. While it was a good time to go and kind of just hang out and have fun, I don't know that it was worth the $45 to $55 ticket prices. But the funny thing is, you hear all these stories about musicians and rock stars and rappers, and this isn't recent. This goes back even into the 50s. Things like this happening to musicians. Migos was pulled over in their tour bus by Boone police after the show, and 3 of their groupies were arrested on drug charges. I can't remember exactly the numbers. I think Ben's got them, but I know one of them was 420 grams of marijuana, which I found incredibly ironic. And those 3 guys took the fall, and the 2 Migos that actually showed up to the concert, we failed to mention, Offset actually did not show up to perform. It was just Quavo and Takeoff. Quavo and Takeoff went home scotch-free, but these 3 guys were not so lucky.
I mean, that's what they're there for.
It's true, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like it was a pretty unfortunate night for all hip-hop fans that evening. But we had officers, after the police report states that the officers smelled an odor smelled an odor of marijuana coming from the tour bus as they were leaving the venue. And so as they were leaving the venue, dispatch was sent to investigate. They ended up pulling the car over, or the vehicle, the tour bus over, and they found 26 ounces of codeine, various charges for Xanax and things of that nature. And yeah, 3 of their buddies were given intent to distribute / deliver charges, possession charges, things of that nature.
How is every rap group not arrested after every concert? I mean, I can't tell you, I've been to a couple rap concerts, and the whole place smells like marijuana. How do those guys not get caught every single time?
I know. It's kind of it kind of reminds me of, for rap groups, getting drug charges is kind of like normal people getting a speeding ticket. Everybody speeds, but it's just if they catch you or not. It's crazy. I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised not as many rap groups or rappers have gotten caught.
So my thing that I'm curious about and would like to know more about is how much of this was actually these 3 guys' possessions and how much of this was members of the Migos stuff. Because here's the thing, none of the Migos were charged with anything of that nature, and I think that could have been, the fact that Migos didn't want to come back to Boone in 3 weeks and appear in front of a judge.
That's right.
And it seems to me like there's a heavy possibility that these buddies took the fall, and I'm sure that they'll be compensated pretty happily for that.
I'm sure, and it's kind of funny because we saw on Quavo, who is the undoubted leader of the group. Yeah. We saw on his Instagram the very next day, he was driving his Ferrari down the interstate to Six Flags, where he went and had a nice day after a kind of a low-key dud concert and a drug bust of some of his groupies. And that didn't faze him at all. He just went and enjoyed the day at Six Flags.
Yeah, it's probably a normal day for them, honestly.
Do you think he even noticed that any of his crew got arrested?
Oh, I bet.
I'm
bet.
sure.
Oh, yeah, because
I
he
mean,
was probably in the tour bus when he
I'm
got
sure.
pulled
Oh,
over.
yeah.
They're probably just like firemen. I thought it was in another vehicle though, not just the tour bus got pulled.
I'm not actually sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but I think the tour bus did get pulled over.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was the main
Because that's where they smelled it.
right. It's whatever main vehicle that the group was using to be transported around, and it definitely created a lot of buzz around Boone here, both before and after the concert. There were all sorts of rumors about which members of the group were going to show up, how many songs they were going to play, and it ended up being an under 40-minute concert. So, like we said, it did leave some fans in disappointment. But nonetheless, it was a fun night out, and it was not the most incredible music performance I know I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it was a good night for a college town and for everybody in it. I'm sure everybody had a good time.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Makes you wonder how many artists are going to be fearful of coming back to
That's a
Boone
valid
for oppressive, or not oppressive by any means, but officers who are taking their job seriously and are fearful
right.
of such matters. You know what I mean?
That's right. So moving on from the news headlines here, yesterday in the world of pop culture, a new trailer, full-length trailer, the one they had put out was only about a minute and 20-some seconds. This one was a full, nearly 3-minute-long trailer for the upcoming Solo, a Star Wars story anthology film. It'll take place in between Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and Rogue One, the first anthology film. For those of you who don't know, Disney, since they acquired Lucasfilm, is putting out these series of Star Wars films that aren't in the direct numbered episodic timeline like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We just got 7 and 8. They take place in the cracks and tell kind of side stories. And this one is going to focus around Han Solo in his formative years. And we've all seen the original trailer. It comes out on Memorial Day, so just over a month here. What did y'all think? What were your first impressions of this brand new trailer?
I mean, it looks like it can be a good movie, but every second that I was watching that trailer, I was just shaking my head because I can't picture anybody playing Han Solo other than Harrison Ford. That whole time I was like, it's not Harrison Ford. It's not going to be good. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a quality movie, but I just can't stand watching someone else play him.
I can't wait to see how Childish Gambino does.
Donald Glover.
Emilia Clarke, and then is it Woody Harrelson?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
can't wait to see how those three
Yes.
people doing it.
And
I
those-
understand the Han Solo is always Harrison Ford, and that's like if they ever did like a Luke Skywalker film that wasn't Mark Hamill, doesn't deserve to be in Star Wars.
And just to clarify there, Donald Glover is playing a young Lando Calrissian who obviously had his first appearance in Empire Strikes Back in 1980. Emilia Clarke's playing, I think her name is Kira. She's kind of the side person, one of the
love
side
interest.
characters. Yeah, she's the love interest of Han Solo, which
She's
I
my
actually
love
want
interest,
to
too.
I actually want to touch on that whole aspect. And then Woody Harrelson is playing a character named Tobias Beckett, who is reported to be, because there's not much really known about the plot of this movie, and he's just rumored to be kind of Han Solo's father figure, kind of mentor character.
So contrary to Paley's belief, I am incredibly excited after watching that trailer, because the biggest thing I thought about going into it is seeing some actors that I've really, really, really loved in other places and wanting to see how they'll do in a format like Star Wars is, like a sci-fi kind of deal. And then we get to, Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones. She's Daenerys, our mother of dragons, and she is one of my personal favorite actresses in the last several years. She looked like she's got a real grasp on the role, and she's really going to enjoy it. Donald Glover from shows like The Community, he's played minor parts in several movies, including The Martian and things of that nature. He looks really, really good, and I mean, I think that might be the best casting ever. Him as a young Lando.
He's got that there were some dialogue pieces in the trailer, as y'all saw, and that he's kind of got that same swagger that Billy D. Williams had, and I think it's really going to work. If nothing else in this movie works, I think his role as Lando Calrissian is going to.
Yeah, he does. I mean,
Looks
I'm
like
not
him
very.
too.
Yeah, he does, and I'm not really. That's probably like the only thing I'm actually really excited about is seeing Donald Glover in it. But I don't know. I'm just not really pumped about it.
Chewie says his age at 190 years old.
I did see that.
And Han Solo's like, oh, you look great for being that old or whatever. And so just imagine what he is like now, like in the newest films that came out. like 50 years
You'd
after
have
the
to-
timeline
you'd
or
have
something
to-
like that.
You'd have to add probably 50 years. So from the beginning, we saw it's really got a Western kind of feel. I thought there were a couple shots kind of from behind in the we've not mentioned his name yet. Alden Ehrenreich is the name of the actor who is taking up the Han Solo character from Harrison Ford. And this story is supposed to take place between, I think, 10 and 15 years before A New Hope. So I can live with it that he looks a little different. And I wasn't sold because there were rumors about this movie that there was an acting coach on set helping him through some of his parts, which is really disturbing, especially for a beloved character like Han Solo, who's been in 4 Star Wars movies now. Obviously, he, spoiler alert, tragically died by the hands of his own son in The Force Awakens.
So the reason that everyone is so worried about, remind me of the actor's name one more time of Solo's.
Alden Ehrenreich.
Okay, so Ehrenreich. So the reason that everyone is so critical, prematurely critical, frankly, of his performance is because they're so worried about seeing someone else play Han Solo. And the reason that that's so difficult is because Han Solo was Harrison Ford's character. Yeah. The reason that he has an acting coach might not necessarily be because he's a bad actor at all. It might be because he's too good of an actor, but he's his own actor.
Yeah.
And they're trying to portray a character that we already have preconceived notions of. We already have an identity for Harrison Ford, for Han Solo. The two seem synonymous in our minds. So the fact of the matter is he's got an incredibly difficult job for an actor, which is to fill a different actor's shoes, even when he may himself be a phenomenal personal actor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it makes sense that he has an acting coach on set because he does have to somewhat take over how Harrison Ford portrayed the character Han Solo. But one thing I noticed is just like the way he talked and stuff, it didn't remind me of the Han Solo that Harrison Ford played. I don't know, it just seems like a whole new
Well, you've got to think, and we might see in this movie that at the beginning he's a young pilot. He's never been through a lot of turmoil in that, that a lot of stuff. 15 years, if there's a 10 to 15 year gap in between this movie and his first appearance, Han Solo's first appearance in A New Hope, Episode 4, he's probably seen a lot of stuff and been through a lot in that gap. So that's going to chisel and change a person. So that's part of the reason that it's kind of I'm optimistic about how it's going to work, is because he is this young kind of bright guy and he has a lot of stuff happen to him.
Do you think Jabba the Hutt is going to make an appearance in this?
Yes.
I hope so.
I think so.
He should.
Here's the thing. Here's another comment on that. Here's another spoiler. Again, spoiler. If you saw The Last Jedi, we saw Yoda return very briefly. I think it was only about probably 3.5 minutes of screen time as a Force ghost because he passed away in Return of the Jedi. And I remember thinking, if they're going to, because I had preconception that something like that might happen in the movie. And I said, if they're going to do it, it's got to be a puppet. It can't be the CGI because you can't go. The original trilogy had the puppet. The prequel trilogy had the CGI. And in chronological order, the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, and now the new trilogy, I don't think they could go back to CGI Yoda. It had to be a puppet just for that to carry over. So, do you think if Jabba the Hutt appears in this film, will he be the massive puppet like we saw in Return of the Jedi? Or do you think they'll do the CGI Jabba hopefully better than they did when they edited him into the special edition of A New Hope that we're not going to get into? We're going to do a Star Wars special coming up when Solo is about to come out, and we'll talk about that then. So what do you guys think about that?
I'm kind of torn. On one hand, I'd be like, pay tribute to the way that the films were made and that they're supposed to be made and, do the puppet of Jabba. It'll look familiar, it'll look, sentimental, nostalgic. On the other hand, the whole point of Jabba the Hutt's character is that he's supposed to be disgusting. And with the new technology we have, he can meet the disgusting levels that he's supposed to meet on screen with new CGI. I kind of want him to be, this big slimy mess.
Oh.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't mind if they did it either way. I feel like there are pros and cons to both, but I kind of hope it's the puppet, just kind of
I do too.
to bring up. And I mean, they can change it up a little bit. They can make it more disgusting and more.
Because in my opinion, in his mannerisms and the way he looked, even that big old puppet, which I think I've seen the behind the scenes stuff. I'm pretty sure that took 5 guys to operate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just think to me, if they did the puppet, it would be more like they had more commitment to the work. That's just because it seems like to me when like I see the CGI, that almost seems like a cop out. Just this is personally to me. I think it shows a lot of effort that they really want to make this a memorable thing if they actually do put in the effort in making that big old puppet and having a bunch of people operate it.
So the difference would be it's not necessarily a cop-out in my mind just because, I mean, I'm specifically coming from someone who does photo manipulation, post-production and things of that nature. I wouldn't say by any means that that's more difficult than making and operating a puppet and making that CGI version of, what was the general's name?
General Grievous.
No.
Oh, Tarkin in Rogue One.
General Tarkin.
The
Thank
face,
you so much. His name was evading me. So they completely re-CGI'd, refabricated a character into the image.
Decent.
That one scene probably took a team of 15 people a week to do.
Sure.
Which a team of 15 people could easily create and operate that same Jabba the Hutt puppet in less time.
Right.
Frankly.
That's true. And I'm not and I don't mean to dish CGI because obviously like if you look at the most recent Star Wars films, I put into very specific terms here. The ending of Rogue One, that space battle, that they couldn't achieve feats like that with the models and the green screen like they did in the 70s and 80s. And that ending of Rogue One and the space battles in The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens were beautifully done.
Okay, last question about the Solo film. Will we see Darth Vader return?
Yes. I think that's already been confirmed.
I feel like he has to make an appearance in every movie that the timeline would line up with.
So if he returns, I just don't want... I got a tease. I got like the biggest tease ever, and I feel like we all agree. Anyone who watched Rogue One saw that incredible, 15 seconds of Darth Vader unleashing this extreme wrath and power that we've been told he's had for so long, because in none of the other films it's really displayed, or at least not in a way that's so visually present to us. So if he is in the film, I kind of want him destroying things.
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of things.
But my thing with that is
a lot.
I don't. I just personally don't see the need for Han Solo to have an interaction with Darth Vader prior to the one they have in Cloud City in Empire, where he pulls the gun on him and Vader pulls it away from him.
It wouldn't make logical sense if they had an interaction beforehand. So I mean, I wonder how they fabricate that in the storyline.
So maybe I see if Vader does show up in this movie that it's he's in the Star Destroyer, like above the planet, like ordering the TIE fighters and stuff. And I think that I would like to see. I would love to see a Darth Vader anthology film. I don't think it'll ever happen.
Oh, it would be great, I feel like.
But I would be interested in seeing it, but I don't think we see a massive scene like that one in Rogue One.
That was the whole prequels.
Okay. We'll just
he does
dismiss
kind of
that.
have a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, he does.
I mean,
but,
yeah.
but I know,
mean.
but like,
you
wouldn't
mean.
you love to see because there's all that stuff and there's that 20 years in between the prequels and the original trilogy that you like. There's stories and stuff that's been in video games and whatnot that what he did in that time was went down and tracked down the last of the Jedi that had escaped Order 66. I'd love to see like a movie where he's going after and stalking, trying to figure out where Obi-Wan is. Like that would it would be interesting. One last thing, I know you said that was the last thing, but I do have one more question about another character we might see since we're on that train here. Do you think that we could have Boba Fett ending up being maybe the big final confrontation in this movie? Because obviously Han has a history with Boba Fett.
So yeah, he obviously has a history because you think about it, that's kind of there's like a criminal ring of people, a group of people that are functioning. That's the part of the galaxy that Han Solo deals with. He's a smuggler by trade. So you think about it, bounty hunters, smugglers, burglars, thieves, assassins, all of those characters, like his interactions with Greedo in A New Hope at the very beginning in the cantina scene.
Han shot first.
Exactly, Han shot first. But those are all from conceived or pre-assumed relationships between him and all these other criminal characters who, by the way, a lot of them have various cameos all across so many different pieces of Star Wars work, media, and etc. So I find it really hard to believe that Boba wouldn't be in the film.
Even if it's
like he's got to be at least a minor part.
You think
it would make a lot of sense.
You think they would pull a Marvel and do an after credit scene? You think that has a place in a Star Wars movie?
Only because Disney and Marvel and it's all one thing now. Like now that they're all owned in their same teams,
right?
I believe that. I believe that
It
is
could
plausible.
happen.
But I don't want an after.
I don't
credit
either.
scene.
No.
I don't
It's
either.
kind of like the big open, the big end, and then it's over kind of thing. That's kind of like part
Right.
of
Right.
what makes Star Wars Star Wars.
And this movie is definitely going to be an interesting watch. And I think, Paley, I know you said you weren't that excited, but I do feel like you have anticipation to see what it turns out to be.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna
Right.
watch it.
So we all definitely look forward to seeing it. And this definitely will not be the last time we talk about it on this show. Like I mentioned a little while ago, we are planning on doing a Star Wars special as our episode the week that movie is supposed to come out. So yeah, that movie comes out on Memorial Day, May 25th, and just over a month, and we definitely are anticipating how it plays out. So moving on from there, this past weekend we're going to touch on real briefly was what many consider to be the biggest weekend in golf, and undoubtedly was, as the Masters tournament was underway. And I know we all enjoyed sitting and watching that for Thursday through Sunday. That winner ended up being Patrick Reed, and second place was Ricky Fowler. So guys, what did you see in the Masters that you liked this past weekend?
So it was a amazing tournament, and it was good to see Tiger back. He made it all 4 days. I thought he played well. He finished at +1. That was upsetting. But Jordan Spieth, he went crazy on Sunday. He shot a 64 and ended at -13. So he finished in third place, but it was just too little, too late. And congratulations to Captain America, Patrick Reed. And he made $1.9 million after winning that green jacket.
Wow.
Oh yeah, so there's a few things to look at that are real notable. So for starters, the top 3 finishing were all American, which is, exciting to see some young representation from some incredible talents coming out of America now. Second thing to think about is we had a lot of talk, way too much talk about Tiger Woods before the tournament for him to come out and play like that. You know what I mean? Like, we heard the media could not get off of Tiger Woods for a whole week.
He was predicted to win by Vegas.
Exactly. They could not get off of him. But here's the thing: have we not heard this story before? Like 2 years ago, people thought, "Oh, is Tiger Woods going to come back?" And then he ended up placing 80th.
Yeah, but he placed 30th +1. That fusion in his spine, it might have worked.
Oh, he finished 32 he finished 32nd at +1, which. But, are we going to clap him, give him a hand?
It's great. He's 44 years old.
He used to make the most money in golf, retire, coach someone, teach someone. He can still make the money being someone's stroke coach.
That's a good point. I really think if Tiger did focus his efforts here, because obviously if he physically can't, keep up with the game as much as he could anymore, it's just like any other sport. There's no reason that he couldn't, even some of these young guys that are already great, Ricky Fowler, for example, who came in second in the Masters this weekend, if he spent an hour or two with Tiger Woods, I bet there's something that even Ricky Fowler could improve upon.
Hey, one stat, the last 4 majors have been won by Americans, and all 4 of them are under 27 years old. That's beautiful for America in the golf world.
There's some serious young talent on that course. Oh, my goodness. And, Masters weekend is one of my favorite weekends of the year by far.
Same.
At any point, I got in trouble in class for a split second. I was in my econ lecture, and I was watching the Masters on my laptop. I didn't realize my teacher was walking around. He walks up and he sits down next to me. I was expecting to get into a lot of trouble. He was like, real quick, check the scores. And he was looking at where everyone was standing. I was like, oh, my goodness. Everyone loves the Masters.
I'll also comment they have a Masters app that is really actually pretty good. And on Thursday and Friday in my classes, if I had the opportunity, and in one of my classes, I use my laptop very frequently, so I prop my phone up on there. I was watching the golf all through my philosophy class, especially on Thursday evening.
It's like March Madness. Everyone who doesn't like the Masters? You don't even have to love golf. Throw it on for a couple hours, and it's like, oh, sweet, this is super pleasant. The second you don't want to watch it, just don't watch it anymore.
I'd love to get there someday to Augusta.
Oh man, my father tells me it's fantastic.
Hey, greatest sport to fall asleep to, golf.
100% best nap ever. You're super interested. The second you're not interested, best sleep of your life. When you wake up, you're really interested again.
That's right, and it was a very good Masters tournament this year. And we like we said, we all enjoyed watching it. And it is such a casual thing to watch, and it's something that you can do in a social setting. Like we were hanging out with people and we had the golf on. It's like, and everybody can it's the type of sport where you can just kind of drop in on and check out what's going on and see the individual golfers.
Yeah, and the one thing that I really want to think about too is, first of all, I love Jordan Spieth. He's my favorite. I mean, he's one of those young guy, class act, super great talent. You think about he lost by what, 2 strokes?
2 strokes.
he triple bogeyed. What was it, 16 on Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
tripled
tripled.
18 on Thursday and Sunday.
So you think about that. You know, I want to see Spieth in a green jacket.
He's got 2.
I want to see him in another one.
And I will say, if we're talking about favorite golfers, two of mine actually ended up not placing as well as I had hoped for. As I will honestly say, Phil Mickelson is my favorite golfer, and he always has been. But he was tied for 36 with +2. And another golfer that I've always been a fan of. My dad is actually the biggest fan. My dad actually bought back in the 90s when this guy was in his peak. Actually bought a set of golf clubs because it was the type that I'm talking about Fred Couples. And he's 58. We heard on there the other day, and it's good to see. This is the only major he still competes in, but he does in the senior tours. I will say it's not obviously the level of competition that the PGA Tour is, but he does play well in those. But he finished tied for 38 with 3 over, and it was a very exciting Masters weekend. A lot of change-ups, a lot of different people going in and out, as it usually is. Moving on from the golf, we'll slide into some basketball here as we rapidly approach the summer months. The NBA playoff picture is rapidly changing. We all thought maybe back at the beginning of the season, we might have all said that we thought Boston would be a contender. And then obviously just recently they found out that Kyrie Irving was going to be out for the rest of the season after Gordon Hayward got out in the first game of the season in that nasty injury. And I say that Boston is my favorite team, but it looks like our hopes of finals glory are way out the window now.
Well, yeah. If you would have asked me about a month ago if I thought LeBron James would make it to another NBA Finals, I would have said no. But now that the Celtics are out of the picture, and then we've seen how the Raptors have started just kind of falling off, especially against the Cavs when they play them, I don't really see anybody competing with them to knock them out in the Eastern Conference.
Completely agree with you. I could see any of those teams. I could see any single one of those teams in the East. I can definitely see them beating the Cavs. I can't see them beating the Cavs in a series of 7, though, because I can't see LeBron losing a series of 7 to any of those teams riddled with injuries and lacking stars to begin with, for the most part, compared to the West at least.
The only team that I give a great chance to beat the Cavs in a 7-game series, those young boys from Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
If Joel Embiid comes back from that face surgery that he had 2 weeks ago or whatever, healthy enough to play for the Eastern Conference Finals, that's when he would see LeBron in them. They would be scary for us Cavs.
I would love to see that matchup. And Ben, like you said earlier, the Western Conference looks crazy. There's only 2 games difference between the number 4 seed and the number 9 seed. And so just that whole bottom part of the Western Conference is just going to be switched up a whole bunch before it starts, and there's only 2 games left. But that's probably the most unpredictable thing is the Western Conference, because we're seeing the Warriors with Steph being injured. We don't know how that's going to go. And if the playoffs start as it is right now, they'll be playing the Thunder in the first round, which I'm not saying the Thunder will beat them or anything, but that'll be a tough series.
The Thunder have had the Warriors number this season, though, right?
The series has been split 2-2. The Thunder beat them by 20 points or more the first 2 games. Then the Warriors whooped some butt, and then they won by about 4 last week or 6 or something.
But if you guys are playing a Warriors without Steph Curry, what do you think the chances are then?
I mean, it's going to be hard for me to say anything that's not biased, but I honestly think the Thunder, if they're playing well, they can beat them. I think the Thunder, if they're on their game, they can beat any team in the NBA playoffs, but that's a big if they're on their game, because you see Carmelo Anthony, who killed it against the Rockets the other day, but he's been so inconsistent this year. Paul George started off the season shooting a better three-point percentage than Steph Curry, has now dropped drastically. So that's a big if.
Yeah, my team to watch out for in the West really is, for me, the Rockets. The Rockets are looking tough.
I don't know. I mean, you see how the Rockets always look strong right before the playoffs, and then they get there. And I think, this is just my opinion, but I think the reason why they struggle in the playoffs is because you don't get those foul calls all the time. And every time, at least this is me, every time I'm watching a Rockets game, it seems like every other possession James Harden is going to the line. And he does not get those same calls in the NBA playoffs. So I feel like that's something they're going to have to get over because they rely a lot on their free throws, and they're just not going to get all those calls. They're not a very physical team.
The one team that I'm worried about, when Damian Lillard comes back, they are going to be scary. The Trailblazers, they're going to finish at, the 3 seed in the Western Conference as of right now?
Yeah.
Then that means they're playing the Warriors in the second round, and then they would have to play the Rockets in the conference finals. I don't know if they have enough in 14 games to beat those two teams 8 times, but they look good.
Yeah, the whole top 4 is crazy. The Utah Jazz too. We haven't talked about them. They're looking very good. So yeah, it's just very unpredictable in the Western Conference.
Needless to say, we're all real excited for that week of June to get here.
I'm so excited. I can't wait.
And it'll be here before we know it. And something else that will probably sneak up on us before we even realize it is the big talk of the NFL, which there's already been a ton here in the offseason. And real quickly, our question we posed before the show today was, are the LA Rams the team to beat in the NFC this year?
With all the new acquisitions, and Seth McVal, I think is the head coach's name, that young guy, they look so amazing. And I can't wait to see what they do. And they are going to be loved by the city of Los Angeles, especially with that $5 billion new stadium that they're going to be getting in 2 years.
Oh, my gosh. I just got one thing to say. I don't know if they're the favorites to win the NFC because it's just hard to tell with, like, a new team that have so many new pieces, especially, like, big pieces. It's kind of like the Thunder we talked about during the offseason. Everybody was like, oh, they might make it to the NBA Finals and win a championship. But you don't know how they're going to mesh. But I will say this, the Rams look so scary. They've got a very solid secondary with Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib, and then they signed Ndamukong Suh, and then they traded for Brandon Cooks. This is a scary team.
Sean McAvey is making some serious moves to build this team. The offense is looking strong. The defense is looking strong. I like the Rams this year.
Don't forget, they got the offensive and defensive MVPs coming back in Todd Gurley and in Aaron Donald, a defensive tackle.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, they're just going to be very fun to watch. And I wouldn't be mad. I mean, it'll be something new seeing the Rams. Like, if they make a run for the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be mad at all. I'd love that.
Who do you like in the AFC this year?
Anyone but the Browns. Coming from a Cleveland fan.
I mean, it's always hard to say anybody other than the Patriots. No matter if you hate them or if you love them, it's just hard to count them out.
Jacksonville, they've added still. They've been losing some guys, but they keep adding. They might be another team that they were close against the Patriots this year. Jacksonville did fantastic last year, but maybe this year's the one where they finally beat the Patriots in the playoffs.
How crazy would it be if we saw a Super Bowl between the Rams and the Jaguars? That would just be – if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I'd say no way that would ever happen.
Yeah, those are two programs that we, as far as our sports fanhood has been concerned, we don't hear too much about, and I'm really excited to see some programs like this that have been kind of not even nobodies, but definitely not somebodies, just in that gray area of decent forever. Now that these programs are starting to build, starting to get really good, it's really exciting to see. So one more thing to mention as we're thinking about some of these big things as far as sports come up, the NHL just set its final lineup for the bracket for the Stanley Cup playoffs, and that's really exciting for me personally as a hockey fan. Hard year for me, Detroit Red Wings, not the greatest season they've ever had, but on the plus side, the Blackhawks didn't make it either, so that's always good. However, there are some things that I just wanted to mention to you guys so that we're ready for that beautiful week or two in June when we've got hockey and NBA basketball every other night.
At the same
for a
time,
whole 2 weeks, we've just got, best competition of some of the best sports. But the big one that I want to look out for, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and they've got the best roster I've ever seen because they have not a single A-list player, but they don't have a single C-list player. It's all Bs. Marc-Andre Fleury in goal, who's got 3 Stanley Cup appearances, and 4 actually, technically, but he rode the bench for 1 of them, and 2 of them he won. We've got young talent like Tatar, things that like this is the team.
It's going to be hard to bet against the Pittsburgh Penguins, though. With Sidney Crosby, they've got the experience. Yeah, Marc-Andre Fleury has 4 appearances, but those guys in goal in Pittsburgh have 4 appearances also.
If there was ever a goalie I would pick to play against Sidney Crosby, though, it would be the keeper that watched him play for, 10 years on his side. Anyway, we're looking forward to that, so keep your ears peeled for that.
So, as always in the sports world, whether it be the NFL, the NHL, or the NBA, there's going to be a lot of discussion and debate. And speaking of discussion and debate, Will, what you got for us in terms of the deep fried question of the week?
All right, so this week's deep fried question, I'm just assuming everybody's seen The Matrix, right? Okay, so let's not talk about right now, but assuming we're like in our mid-30s, 40-year-old, and it turns out that you find out that life as you know it is produced by a machine, just like The Matrix. What would you do? Would you just keep living your life? You're already so deep into it, and then everything outside of the world is nothing like you know. Nobody looks like they look in person, and yeah, it's just going to be totally different. But contrary to The Matrix, there's nothing going to like kill you or attack you outside of the simulated world that you're in right now. So would you stay in the world that you are, or would you leave?
I think I would personally stay in the world I know. Why would you mess it up? Just live your life and just keep going how it is and just stay on the straight and narrow path.
Would it not bother you, though, just knowing that everything you're doing isn't real?
So the concept of real versus fake is what tickles me with this question. So if this is a simulation and then we leave this simulation and go back to what should be considered the real world, who's to say that's not a simulation?
Exactly.
Because before this moment, we did not know that this was a simulation. So as far as it's concerned, I don't think that there's a wrong answer just because defining reality is, quite an interesting conversation.
I very much agree with that because just because something isn't real in terms of tangibility doesn't mean that the way you live your life, you can't make something real. Like if you're already in this world and you have loved ones, you have things you enjoy doing, you have a good life, why not, just because you find out that it's not tangibly real and it's all being produced, if nothing's going to threaten your life and you get to continue doing it the way you've been doing it and you love doing it that way, then why does that have to cease to be real to you?
It also poses a question about mortality too, because in a situation where nothing is real, it makes me think about circumstances where what happens when we die, and across every single religion, but most of the time it's the same kind of perpetuated stance that you can't bring anything here with you. You can't, nothing that happens here really matters other than how you treat people and how you treat yourself. So with those kind of like basic guidelines, does that not sound like this is already a simulation? Any one person's theology, any one person's religion is their own personal view on the simulation, but the simulation as a whole is just our existence on Earth, right? Too much?
Mic drop.
Too much.
I pretty much agree with everything that you just said. I really do, because everybody's world is their own as they make it rather than what is presented to them. Obviously, you have to make your own world of what is presented to you, but it's the way you use that. And that's what I said earlier, like what becomes real to you. And, just because you find out that it's not tangibly real, why does it have to stop being real for you? Because, there's people, and this is a higher age group podcast. So there's people, when you become a early teen is when you stop believing in Santa Claus and you realize that that's not real.
Wait, what?
Santa's not real?
But, there's still people that you believe that there's no big fat man that comes down your chimney and brings you presents.
Of course not. He uses the front door like a civilized human.
But you still, there's a lot of people that still believe in that Christmas is that magic time of year. So it's making your own reality of what is presented to you, and that's what I think makes this question so interesting.
Yeah, just because it's real doesn't mean it's not significant to
right.
you.
That's very accurate. It's like
true.
The principle and the idea of Santa Claus is something special and something that there's parts of it that everybody in this room probably holds on to in some regard. It's that spirit of Christmas and the time of the year and that kind of thing. And I just that's my example, my parallel to your question there, that when life presents you with something, even if you find out something you thought was so real at one time and you realize that it's not, there's still something you can hold on to make it real to yourself.
Reality is no more than just a perception of what reality is. You know what I mean? Like, Santa Claus is real until he's not real anymore.
That's right.
So as far as I'm concerned, this matrix, this simulation that we live in, is real. And then the second it's not real, then that new reality is now real.
Yeah, it's crazy thinking about just all of this.
So that really is something kind of heartfelt and meaningful to think about. And we hope that you, the listener, enjoyed, pondering on it yourself. And that's what we try to achieve with our talking points here. And the deep fried question is sometimes they can be serious like this, and then like our episode 3 weeks ago about the killer hamster that chased you halfway around
snail.
the world.
It was a
It's
snail.
not
On
hamster.
his snail boat.
Much more
on
terrifying.
the snail boat. I don't know. I think just a quick silly question: would you be more terrified of a killer snail or a killer hamster?
Killer hamster?
Killer snail, dude. Snails are
Hamster.
slimy, man. Hamsters are cute and furry. If
Not
I'm gonna
if it
die,
kills
I'd
you.
rather
a
die.
red-eyed hamster with big teeth,
Alright.
like big
Teeth.
fangs.
See, the
and
thing is,
stuff.
you're gonna die either way. Then I'd rather die holding something cute and fuzzy than holding something slimy and gross.
Have you seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Of course I have. The
You know,
killer rabbit.
The killer rabbit. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to end this week's episode of Deep Fried Freedom Presents Hallway Talk. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll be back next week. I'm Clay Councilman alongside Phil, Ben, and Will, and we thank you for listening to this week's episode, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.